Rome, the eternal city, a civilization built on discipline, power, and vision. But imagine this. What if its great monuments weren't only aqueducts and temples, but factories and engines? What if, beneath the arches of the Colosseum, machines hissed and roared, centuries before the modern world? What if Rome had discovered industry long before anyone else? The Roman Empire was a marvel of its age. Roads bound together provinces that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia. Aqueducts carried water across impossible distances. Laws, legions, and architecture made Rome a world power like no other. But for all their brilliance, the Romans never crossed one threshold: the leap to industrial power, the shift from human and animal muscle to steam, coal, and mechanized force. If Rome had taken that step, if they had reached the Industrial Revolution more than 1,000 years early, the story of humanity would be unrecognizable. Rome already had the raw pieces. They mined iron and bronze. They engineered complex machines. They mastered the flow of water, turning mills into vast sources of power. And in Alexandria, Hero of Alexandria built the Aeolipile, a primitive steam engine. It worked. It spun. But to the Romans, it was little more than a clever toy. Now imagine a world where it wasn't dismissed, where Roman engineers refined it, scaled it, and put it to work. Factories rising on the banks of the Tiber, wagons pulled by engines instead of oxen, black smoke pouring from chimneys across the empire, long before London's skies ever darkened. Slaves no longer powering Rome's economy, because machines never tired, fields harvested faster, iron forged in staggering quantity, legions equipped with endless supplies of armor, weapons, and siege machine. Rome would not just command people, it would command industry. In our history, the Industrial Revolution began in Britain in the 18th century. Over 1,000 years after the fall of Rome, it transformed scattered kingdoms into world-spanning empires. It shifted humanity's center of gravity from the farm to the factory. But Rome had resources Britain never did: an empire-wide labor force, vast reserves of iron, wood, and coal, centralized authority, trade networks reaching across 3 continents. If the same fire had ignited in Rome, the scale would have been unimaginable. Would Britain, centuries later, have mattered at all? Or would the entire globe already have been Roman, industrial, and unstoppable? Step 1. The Roman elite see the potential of machines. Workshops appear, powered by steam and water. Step 2. Slavery begins to fade, not because of morality, but because engines are more efficient than chained labor. Step 3. The economy erupts. Factories flood provinces with cheap tools, weapons, and textiles. Populations boom. Cities sprawl. Roads evolve into rail networks. Step 4. The army transforms. Legions no longer march only on foot. They ride iron trains. Their fleets are powered not by wind, but by steam. War itself becomes mechanized centuries ahead of schedule. And step 5, expansion. The Rhine, the Sahara, the distant Silk Road, all within Rome's reach. The empire would not simply endure. It would stretch far beyond the map we know. But here lies the turning point. What happens when a slave empire suddenly commands machines of mass production? Does Rome free the enslaved because they are no longer necessary? Or does it bind them even tighter, forcing them to work the factories that never sleep? Would industry lift ordinary citizens into prosperity? Or would it funnel power upward into the hands of emperors and elites? We don't have the answer, but I want to ask you, if Rome had turned to machines, would it have liberated its people, or enslaved them in ways no one could escape? If industry had taken hold, Rome's society would have changed at its core. Cities would have swelled beyond imagination. Pollution would have choked the skies above Rome and Constantinople. Overcrowding would spread disease. And with new hardships, new faiths and philosophies would rise. Christianity, persecuted in the early empire, might have been crushed entirely by an iron-fisted state. Or perhaps it would have spread even faster, carried by the unrest of factory workers and the poor. In our world, Rome collapsed under economic strain, political division, and waves of invasion. But with industry, The Goths and Huns could have been met with mechanized armies, supplied by endless production. Rome might never have fallen, and the centuries we call the Dark Ages, they might never have existed at all. An industrial Rome would have shifted the entire course of civilization. Printing, railways, electricity, even flight could have arrived centuries, perhaps millennia earlier. Medicine might have leapt forward, lifespans extended, science advanced beyond recognition. But war, too, would have come earlier, larger, more devastating. The same empire that pioneered aqueducts and law could have pioneered weapons of destruction long before the world was ready to face them. Would humanity, driven forward at breakneck speed, have reached the modern world sooner, or destroyed itself along the way? If Rome had embraced the Industrial Revolution, the world as we know it may never have taken shape. No medieval knights, no Renaissance, no voyages of discovery. Perhaps only one empire, one machine, one destiny. But here is the question that lingers. If Rome had discovered industry, would we already be reaching the stars today? Or would humanity's fire have burned out centuries before its time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.